Hi, welcome to this first kind of tutorial. In this one, we're going to be showing how to set up your VFX test level. If you're unfamiliar with Unreal Engine, I'm going to show you guys how to launch it from the Epic Game Store app, which is right here. If you don't have an Epic Game Store account, you can create your own using your personal account. So in order to access Unreal Engine from here, you have to go to this left-hand side section where you can see Unreal Engine right there. So if you click that, it'll bring you to this one. And you can go to your library on top here and see what engine versions you have installed. Now, if you don't have any installed yet, then this will be blank. In that case, you could just click this little plus icon on top, which will bring up this sort of grayed out icon with the Unreal Engine version that it's currently set to install. So by default, this is like the latest. It's always set to the latest. But you can choose which one you can install. So you can even install like Unreal Engine 4 from here. For our class, we're going to be using 5.6 because it's the latest version and it's the one installed in the computers in Benilde. So you can access your files from your personal to the school computers. But for this recording, I'm just going to use my Unreal Engine 5.5 because that's the one I have installed currently. Once you hit install, it's gonna like download and install it. And then once it's finished, it'll turn blue like this one, and then you can just hit launch from here. So once I hit launch there, it's gonna load a little bit, and it's going to kind of load up the editor. Now, it will bring you to the Unreal Project browser. And what this is essentially just sort of the landing page for when you open Unreal Engine without opening a project. So if you're creating something new, then you're going to want to go into one of the templates here on the left-hand side. For us, we're going to be going into games. And then what you want to do is choose a project location. So for me, I already have it set here, STYLVFX. You can make a new folder and just name it to STYLVFX_ your name, which is what I've done. And select that folder. Once you have it selected, you can rename the project name to the same sort of naming convention, which is just the class. So it's just STYLVFX_ your name. So this is going to be mine. So this is project name, STYLVFX_ Phoenix. You can rename yours to your STYLVFX_ your name, and then hit create. What you'll notice also back in that other screen is that I chose the blank template, which is going to bring us to this sort of default map. Right now, you can see on the title here, it says untitled, and that's because it isn't saved or anything, and it's just the default map. You can choose to use this or not. For us, we're not going to use this, and we're just going to create our own test map. If you haven't used Unreal Engine, allow me to give you the quick tour of the layout, right? So we have the outliner here. This is just for the various objects that are already within your scene. So if you're starting out from a blank map, this will be empty. You have your details tab over here, which is if you have an actor selected on the map, the properties will show on the details tab here. For me, I have the content browsers up. By default, these are going to be hidden. It's going to look like this by default. And then to bring that up, you're going to have to click on the content drawer to kind of bring up your various little assets. But for me, I like to have it up all the time. So I'm just going to go to Windows, content browser, and then bring up my two sort of content browsers that I like. You can also bring up like additional details tabs. Details tabs or like other sort of windows that'll help you kind of navigate Unreal Engine. It all depends on your workflow and what works for you. But for now, we're going to keep it a little basic. So with that in mind, we can move on to actually creating our level. So to start, I'm going to create a VFX folder in the content folder, in the content, sort of the root. This is kind of a root. This is kind of a root folder. So you can just right click anywhere on the browser, like I'm going to do here. And then I'm going to click new folder. You could also click add and then new folder from there. And then I'm going to name this VFX, this folder VFX. So all of our assets are going to go in here. Our materials, our Niagara systems, our textures, and our sequencers are going to go here, as well as our test level. From here, I'm going to just right click. Once I go into the VFX folder, I'm just going to right click and create. See here, it says create basic asset. And so underneath here, there's this level asset. So just click that. And it'll create this level asset for you. And you're going to name it LVL underscore VFX test map. Here you go. Once that's done, you're going to double click it to open. And it's going to ask you to save the content. And it does that automatically. The best thing to do is to save it so that you don't forget. And then it's going to bring you into the test map. As you can see, it's all black, because there's nothing in it yet. So you can kind of see it in the outliner. There's nothing in it. The first thing I'm going to do is to fix the settings so that every time I open this project, this test map is the one that comes up and not the untitled one that comes up by default. So for this one, I'm going to click on project settings up here on the upper right, and then just project settings, and it'll bring up this window. And from this window, I'm going to look at the left-hand side. You can see there's all sorts of sections or settings here that you can modify. You're going to go over to project and then maps and modes. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4th option on the sidebar. And you're going to look at default maps. So as you can see, we have open world editor startup map and game default map. And you are going to change both of these to your VFX level test map. There's two ways you could do this. You could click on the drop down here and then look for your test map, right? So you could just search for your test map. So I'll just VFX test map, and then click it, and it'll set it for the startup map. That's good for this one. And then the second option is to kind of just click and drag this asset into here. As you can see, like once I click and drag it, it's going to highlight any field that it's sort of eligible to be put in. And so you can just click and drag it over, and it'll set it right up like that. So then that's good, right? So it's set up, it saves automatically. So you could just close this, and we can continue with creating our test map. The first thing we do to create a test map is to create the floor. Some people like to start with a light, but the light without anything to kind of interact with is not going to do much. So you're not really going to see anything either way. But for me, I like to start with a floor. And there's a number of ways you could do this. Some people, if they really want to like test out their levels, like in gameplay and stuff, they will use like a box brush to create an actual floor with collisions. For us, that's not going to be an issue, at least for this application. You're not going to need to kind of run around and sort of test it. So what I like to do as sort of the simplest possible thing is to just create a plane. And so the plane, you can see, will appear on the outliner, and it'll appear on the map as like an outline. You can't really see it, but it's there. And that's because like there's no light yet. The first thing I'll do to this plane is scale it. So I'm going to go over to my details tab and sort of look at the scale here. I'm going to just lock the settings here, just so when I edit one of these properties, as you can see, this is like XYZ scale. If I edit one of these, it'll just scale everything proportionally. So That way I don't have to worry about like sizing it in different ways. So for this one, I'm just going to set it to something big, like 20,000. And as you can see, it's going to stretch all the way across, right? So now I have my plane. I could also set the location to 000 if I really want to. That way everything's at origin, and you can just kind of play around there. There you go. So now we have a plane. We will tweak this more as we go, but this will be good enough for now. Step number 2 is to add light. So in Unreal Engine, the global lighting is tied directly to the directional light. So you could just go up to this icon here, quickly add to the project. So this is called the quick add button. It's a very simple way to start adding actors into the engine. And from here, you can kind of just go to lights and then click on directional light to drop it in. And what you'll notice is that immediately the world is suddenly lit. And that's because, like I said, global lighting is tied to the directional light actor. So it's immediately linking that. The directional light actor is this one. And as you can see on its sort of gizmo, it has this arrow that's kind of pointing downwards. And that is indicating what time of day is it. So where is the sunlight coming from? What's really cool about that is if you rotate this around sort of on that y-axis, you can change the time of day. So you can have longer shadows or have it be sort of sunset or even evening, depending on your tastes. But for me, I'm just gonna keep it like straight down for noon, just so that's sort of the most neutral kind of lighting that I can make that doesn't have a ton of like distracting shadows. You can kind of sort of keep it at an angle if you want, but for me, this works. Right. Okay. So now we have our plane, and then we have our directional light. Step 3 is to add a sky actor, so that we can have like a sky, just so this isn't like black and stuff. Same thing. We'll go to the quick add, and sometimes actors can be hard to find if you're just like looking for them in these sections, because sometimes there's like in the volumes there's quite a bit of them. When I can't find an actor, I could just start typing to search the actor's name. So this one is called Sky Atmosphere. So Sky Atmosphere is going to add the sky sphere, which will kind of give us that nice sort of sky effect, and it will even like give us the position of the sun, which, like I said, if I start rotating this along sort of the y-axis, you can actually see the sun move in the sky because it's directly tied to that actor. So that's pretty cool, I think. So now we have the sky, we have the ground, and then we have light. Now we can start blending in the horizon line. What you'll notice is that the horizon line right now is, very, very sharp, and there's not really much kind of like atmospheric effect that is kind of blending that in. And what happens there is if you try to create visual effects in this kind of environment, it's going to have that sharp line at the end that can be a little bit distracting, not to mention that it'll clip through various like translucent material. So it's going to be very, very distracting. So we're going to want to blend that out. To do that, we're going to create a exponential height fog. So just look it up at the quick add, and it's going to be this one. Once I click on that actor, it's going to add it into the level, and immediately you're going to see the horizon line kind of blend out, kind of blur out. And it's going to create this gradient at the edge on the sky and kind of on the ground. And this gradient is this fog is going to help us blend out that very distracting, sharp horizon line. So you can already see it's starting to happen here. I'm going to try and blend it in more by going into the details tab while having the height fog selected. And then I'm going to go in here and look at these two setting. So you're going to go down to this very first section, exponential height fog component, and you're going to look at fog density and fog height fall off. The moment I start tweaking this, you're going to see the gradient on the horizon line start to get higher and higher, right? So fog density is kind of equal to the height of this fog. And then height fall off is going to be sort of the sharpness of that transition. So you're going to want a smooth fall off with a nice gradient, kind of like this one. So somewhere like 0.2 is fine, which is the default. And then you're going to want to kind of extend this fog up, right? So you can kind of see, you can go all the way to 0.05. You can also bump this number up. And by when I say bump it up, that just means go beyond the default. So the max of this is 0.05, but you can actually type in a number like 0.1 to kind of make it a little bit, higher or denser. And that's for various sort of performance cost reasons. Obviously, we don't want to always do that, right? But for our purposes, because this is mainly just like a visual effects map, this is going to be okay. This is not going to kill your computer at all. If you want more fog, so say this isn't this blurs it out a little bit, but I don't think it blurs it out enough. You could use the secondary fog data to add a little bit more density to the fog and have it sort of come closer to the camera, just so it can be a little bit more blurred out, and a lot less distracting. There you go. So I mean, this is already going, so this is pretty good. I'll leave this here for now. And I'm going to do a couple of things to start kind of making this scene a little bit sort of prettier in terms of the setup. The next thing I want to do is to have a little bit of texture on the floor. You can have just sort of a flat material here. The problem with that is mainly that it doesn't convey scale very well. So in this case, it could just feel like some kind of void type of effect. It's going to be hard to kind of visualize scale with this kind of material. So I want to sort of a different sort of grid material for this effect. Now, thankfully, Unreal Engine has something like that already in the engine. So we don't have to create our own grid material. We can just take Unreal's and you can go get it by going to all. So usually it would be all content. You could go to all and look up sort of the proc grid. It's PROC grid, proc grid, and you'll end up with this proc grid material here. This mi_proc grid. This is what you're looking for. You could just click this and drag it onto your floor. Or with your floor selected, click this and drag it to the material slot on the right hand side here. So either or works. Like if I just click it there, it'll work. And what this will do is it'll create a grid material for your floor. That way, once you have your VFX set up, you can have something that has scale embedded into the floor material here. So that immediately makes it look a little bit more professional, and it kind of gives the impression that you're thinking about the size of the area or the scale of the effect. So this is already looking pretty nice. You can see it kind of blends out as it goes to the distance, which is what we want. So this is already pretty good. We can do some more stuff with this. Like, for example, I want the background to be a little bit more neutral. I want the sun to go away. I want this to overall be a kind of a more neutral environment. So the blue isn't working for that. And so to do that, I'm going to start to shift the color to something that's a little bit more gray. So I'm going to go into the sky atmosphere here on the outliner. I'm just going to click that, and I'm going to go to Rayleigh scattering, click the color bar, and then just start adjusting the value. So I'm going to desaturate this sky, just so it's not like, it's not blue. And then I want it to be darker because we're working with a lot of emissives. I want it to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to bring this down to about 75% gray, to like something like that. I think works pretty well. And you can kind of see it's already blending together. There. So that's pretty good. Next, I'm going to the directional light. And I'm going to turn off the sun. So within the directional light, I can just go to the details tab and search sun here. And this is going to bring up the atmosphere and cloud. So don't uncheck this, because if you uncheck this, it's going to turn off the lights for your sky. Obviously, that's not what we want. But we can turn off the sun itself by looking at this atmosphere sun disk color. And right now it's set to white. You can actually change the sun color here. So as you can see, it's changing, right? But we want to turn it off, so I'm going to just set it to black. If you set it to black, it'll turn off entirely, and you won't be able to see it as much. That's good. So now there's no more sun. The sky is nice and gray. It's becoming a little bit more neutral. I want the overall lighting of the map to be a little darker. So I'm going to set still on the directional light, I'm going to set the intensity to 1 lux. And when I do that, it's going to make it darker. But I don't know if you noticed that. I set it to 1, so it should be darker. But Unreal's camera has an auto exposure functionality to it by default. So that presents some problems because number one, it's hard to set the lighting to something that's a little bit darker. Because of the auto exposure, it's just going to bring it back up to like a light color. But also number two, when we're working with a lot of emissives, it's going to shine brightly in the map and it's going to flash a lot. It's going to like vary the lighting quite drastically in short spans of time. So it's going to flash. It's going to kind of flash bang the camera, and we don't want that because the auto exposure can't keep up with sort of the fast moving lights. So what we want to do is to limit the speed, or at the very least, eliminate sort of the ramp up or ramp down time of the auto exposure from the default camera of Unreal. So to do that, we're going to have to set a post-process volume to be able to control the various different lights that Unreal Engine has. So to do that, we go back to our quick add and add our last actor to this setup, which is the post-process volume. You can look it up on the search bar. That's the easiest way. You could also see it in visual effects. It's the first one here. Post-process volume. So just click that, and it's going to add this little box, wireframe box thing. And those are bounds for various like common applications. You're going to want to keep the bounding box on because you can't have too many post-process volumes overlapping and overriding each other. That's going to make your Unreal Engine crash. For our purposes, because we're only really going to be using this one, we can turn off the bounding box entirely. So we're going to scroll all the way down until we see post-process volume settings. And you're going to see this little option here, infinite extent. And by default, this is unchecked. So you can just check this, and it's basically, once you check it, it's going to ignore the bounding box and apply the post-process settings to everywhere on the map, no matter where you go. So for global post-process stuff like exposure, bloom, chromatic aberration, maybe you're going to want to keep that you're going to want to keep that infinite extent. For us, we're going to, the first thing I'm going to do to kind of bring back the darkness, I'm going to play around with the exposure settings. So a lot of this is done by feel. And what we're going to do, I think, is to check some of these boxes. So we're going to go to metering mode, exposure compensation, and min-max EV. So min-max EV is basically shutter or aperture settings. And we want to kind of make sure that the minimum and maximum EV is the same. That way, the camera kind of has nowhere to go, and it won't ramp up or ramp down depending on the lighting changes as much. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to set these to 0. And as you can see, the moment I do that, it's going to immediately make the scene darker. And that's pretty good. You can play around with this a little bit, have a little bit of variation to it. But essentially for me, this is pretty much okay to have, so you have sort of stable lighting. And this dark background is going to provide a lot of good sort of focus for your visual effects. But as you can see, the lighting, it kind of feels a little bit flat, which, depending on the effect you're working on, you could leave it like this if you really want to. But I'm going to do a couple more stuff to make it pop out a little bit more. Right, so for this one, I'm going to do a little bit of compensation. So as you can see, if I modify the compensation, right now it's at 1. If I bring it to negative, bring it closer to 0, it'll get darker. And then positive stops, it'll get brighter. So that's just sort of exposure compensation. You're free to not touch that. For the directional light, I'm going to maybe add in a little bit more light. Just 1.5 should be enough. Also for the directional light, I'm going to turn off specularity scale, just so it's not like super distracting on the ground. A little bit is okay. I think like 0.3 or 0.4 is good, just so you have like a little bit of light bouncing off of that floor, because if you turn it 0, then it's going to be completely flat. And sometimes we want a little bit of, reflection coming up to make it a little bit more realistic. Yeah, so 1.5 lux or 1 lux is good enough for this sort of lighting. Next, also for the exponential height fog, I'm going to bring in a little bit more light, because this is fine, but it's a little bit dreary, and the black is a little bit too dark. So what I'm going to do is, for the exponential height fog, I'm going to modify this fog in scattering color. And what this does is basically tint the fog. So right now it's set to black, which means it's mainly transparent because it's not like registering any color. So the moment I bring this up, you can see that the fog is going to get a little bit lighter. So you can do this to achieve some kind of like Silent Hill effect. And that does 2 things. Number one, it brings a little bit more light into the scene. So just so it's not super black or super dark, but also it blends out that edge a little bit more to be able to, like, it's no longer, you can't even see the horizon line anymore, which for various reasons I think is going to be good in terms of making your visual effects pop. As for the color, something like 75% black is good enough. You can set it brighter, but it gets a little bit overwhelming. So something like 75% is good enough. That's enough light and just enough kind of brightness to kind of give the environment a little bit more life while keeping it neutral at the same time. Remember, we don't want anything that's too distracting. You can also, depending on your tastes, you can also kind of just tint the fog. You can see by tinting it slightly, I can give a little bit of sort of an atmospheric environment feel to it. This will depend on your taste, but also your kind of knowledge of color theory and all that stuff. So right now I'm choosing to tint it slightly to blue just so the fog is a little bit cooler. And maybe I want that because some of the effects that I'm going to do on this test map are more sort of warmer tones, right? So maybe I want to do some fire effects or some lightning, kind of some dark red lightning effects that get a little bit warmer or that are on the warmer side of things. And so I want the environment to kind of contrast that to make it pop a little bit more, right? So I want to tint it blue. Conversely, if I want to have kind of a ghostly, spectral visual effect, where I'm using a lot of like aquamarines or blue greens or just like very like spectral or pale blues, maybe I want something that's a little bit warmer to contrast that, or maybe a little bit blue to complement the theme of something that's like creepy and or ghostly or whatever. So it all really depends on your artistic taste. If you are having trouble, always look for references. You can go on Pinterest or ArtStation to kind of gain a sense of like, okay, for this atmosphere you could use this, for this environment you could use these colors. So for now I'm going to leave it tinted just a little bit, just so there's a little bit of color to it, and a little bit of life. There you go. So now I have my test map. This would be good enough for visual effects. There's just the one more thing that I want to do for this, and it's to test out the bloom. So the bloom is just, I don't know if you remember the sun. Earlier, there was like a shine to that. So we want to test that out because a lot of our visual effects are going to involve emissives and bloom. So we want to nail that right away. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create a new folder, and name it materials, and within that materials folder I'm going to create a master material that's just like an emissive, m_emissive. This is just the test, so you don't have to, we're going to delete this later because we're only using this to kind of test the post process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a plane. And with this plane, I'm going to assign my material. So my new master material, this test material, I'm going to assign it to my plane. And then I'm going to open it. So this will open the material graph editor. Not to worry about this too much. Again, like I said, we're just using it to test this post-process of our test map. I'm just going to go through this really quickly. For this emissive material, I'm going to send my blend mode to translucent, and I'm going to change the shading model to unlit. And then I'm going to create a radial gradient exponential node. So this function essentially just creates I think you can just plug it immediately into emissive color. And it's going to create just a gradient, which you can control the radius of and the density. So I'm just gonna like 0.2, 0.3. Yeah, there you go. That should be okay. And then I'm going to assign a vector 3 and just multiply sort of the color. I'm going to plug the gradient exponential straight into opacity. And then I'm going to do a little bit of just a little bit of math to fix sort of the eye adaptation for this one. So I'm just going to do divide, then eye adaptation here. I'm going to post the source code on Big Sky, so you don't have to worry about sort of how this material graph works. This isn't like a real thing we're going to actually be using. Yeah, so this is just more to test. And then I'm going to bump up the value of this to like 10 or like 50. Then I'm going to hit apply. So there, as you can see, within once you hit apply, that's it. I'm not going to change anything in this material anymore, because it will serve its purpose. For this one, as you can see, there's a little bit of glow, right? A little bit of haloing happening. There's like a glow that's surrounding it already, just because we've sort of bumped up the emissive on the material. But so for this one, it's a little bit hard to see it, but it looks to me at least, it looks a little bit flat, only in that it's not really glowing. So we can enhance that glow a little bit to make our visual effects pop a little bit more. So for this, we're going to go to the post-process volume, and we're going to go to bloom, which is right above exposure. We're going to go to bloom, and we're going to click on these boxes. So method, intensity, and threshold. Threshold only works for standard. When you can set this to convolution, which is the more sort of a little bit more advanced in terms of the sort of the calculation it takes to create the bloom. This is already taking into factor sort of the tint color of the exponential height fog. So for example, if I set this to white, it should not color that as much. But so what happens here is that it's ramping up sort of the intensity of that glow. And you could theoretically give a little bit more to this, like for example, like set it to 5 or set it to 3, set it to 10. So if you set it to 10, there you go, it's going to blow up and it's going to basically flashbang your camera. And it's already giving a little bit of chromatic aberration just because of the fog. So it's basically like emulating actual sort of light sort of refraction. So you can set it to 1, which I think is good enough. For 50, this is already, the bump on this is 50, which is what we can see here. It's already 50. So I think like 2 is good enough for this. If you're using convolution, if you're using standard, then you're gonna want to kind of bump this up a little bit more. But you have to be careful because this intensity is not just bumping up the glow on this emissive material, but it's bumping up the glow on every emissive material, and that includes your directional light. So you'll see if I set this to 10, it's going to make the entire scene light again, because basically light is starting to flood in to your camera settings. So obviously we want to kind of balance that out. Something like 2 or 3 will work just fine. You can see this, it's already like making it glow quite a bit. This is great for like little particles like embers and sparks. Just be careful not to sort of overexpose it. So maybe like 2.5 or 2 is going to work for this one. Which is, so these are the bloom settings. Threshold is just how sort of how much contrast is going to happen when you have blooms. So for example, right now the threshold by default is set to -1, which means there's not much compensation that's happening. But if you increase the threshold, what's going to happen is it's going to brighten up the emissives and make the environment around it darker, so that it's a little bit more highlighted. So for this one, I actually like to set threshold to something like -0.8, which will make the the background darker without the bloom actually getting washed out. So you can kind of see this if I start to turn up the intensity again. There you go. So like it's not like washing out the environment as much anymore. But I still would like to maybe keep this to 3 or 2.5 because I think that this is good enough. This is perfect for our applications. So that's just enough glow that you can kind of see it glow throughout the atmosphere. For me, I'm going to do convolution just because I like having sort of the little refraction. But obviously, if that's not your taste, then you could just go with standard, and have a little less sort of imperfections on this the lens refraction. There you go. So with that, now that we have the bloom, we have the exposure settings here, the height fog is all set up, the light is all good. This actually is all it takes to build your level. So with that, you can now start to create visual effects in this map, and it'll be nice. It'll be like highlighted. It'll pop off the environment, and it'll look like really nice and professional, especially if you want to add like various little effects like chromatic aberration and stuff like that. So this is a good test map, and we can start producing visual effects on this test map now. So yeah, that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in class. Okay, bye-bye.